We are Saints in the South, your source for gospel growth and good times. All right, welcome back to another episode of Saints in the South. Today, I've got two special guests here on with me. I've got Jared Murray and Jason Barnum. 25 years ago, we were serving in the Nevada Las Vegas mission. And we had an incident that took place that we were all involved in that we very easily refer to as a miracle that took place. But just kind of starting out before we get into it, I'm going to ask Jared if you'll go first, just kind of introduce yourself and then a little bit of background. And then Jason, if you would introduce yourself.
Yeah, Jared Murray. I live in Calgary, Alberta. I served with Jackson and Jason in the Nevada Las Vegas mission. And I was a convert to the church when I was 16. And I've grown up my whole life in Calgary, and I have a family here now. I'm married to my wife, Holly, and we've got 4 children, ages 19, 16, 12, and 10. And yeah, I'm a project manager for a construction company up here. We do fire coatings and we fire safe buildings, build rated systems. And yeah, I've been doing that for pretty much since I got off my mission.
Very good. Jason?
Yeah, I'm Jason Barnum, and I currently live in Santa Quin, Utah. Although I'm originally from Washington State, where I grew up, and married to my amazing wife, Diana Barnum. And we've got 5 kids. My oldest is 15, and my youngest is 6 years old. I got 4 girls and 1 boy. Yeah, I'm a farmer. I kind of consider myself a corporate farmer, and so I've been in agriculture my entire life, and so I manage a farm for a business that essentially extracts juice from wheat and oats and barley and things like that, and then dries it into a powder, and it goes into various products like protein shakes and things like that. And so I manage a farming operation for that business. And so anyway, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Very good. Very good. Thinking of this just pops in my mind, technology. There's a lot of bad that comes from technology, but there's a ton of good that comes from technology. And this is one of them. If it wasn't for technology, Facebook and different social media platforms, I don't know that the 3 of us ever get back together again. The world is so big and we're so busy and things just, everything going on. So thankful for the opportunity. I mean, this is other than communicating back and forth through Facebook Messenger. This is the first time that we've gotten together and chatted and caught up and everything. So yeah. It was good catching up with y'all there for a little bit before we hit the record button. But so Jason and I, we were in the MTC at the same time. However, we were not in the same district. I was in a district where no one else was going to Las Vegas. Everybody was going to either New Mexico or New Jersey. And correct me if I'm wrong, was Adam Hansen your companion?
He was.
Yeah. Okay. And also, I think I remember you 2 showing up at my dorm room, informing me of flight plans and things like that, because I couldn't find anybody in the MTC that was going to Las Vegas. So I thought I was the only one going to Las Vegas. And then one day, maybe a day or 2 before we're scheduled to leave, Jason and Adam, or Elder Barnum and Elder Hansen, they show up at my dorm room and saying, "Hey, by the way, we've been sent to give you some plans and everything." And so I'm like, man, it was finally glad to meet somebody that's going to the same place that I am.
You mean there's others?
That's right. That's right.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think there was also another district, which the bulk of the Las Vegas missionaries were in, which was Anthony Joyner.
Right.
And then I'm trying to remember who else was in that, but I think their whole district was all going to Las Vegas, maybe. Anyway,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, at that time there was a surge of missionaries going out for the church. It was just booming at that time.
Yeah.
And so these missions were just getting loaded up with new missionaries.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yep, absolutely. And matter of fact, so if y'all could give me your reactions when you opened up your papers, your mission papers.
Oh, I was really, really happy that I wasn't going anywhere where I had to learn another language,
Okay.
because I mean, it's just not, I just don't have the intelligence to learn another language. I just wasn't blessed with that. I have a hard enough time with English. And so I was really happy about that. And I was happy also because my parents were really nervous about me going on a mission. So, yeah, it was good. I was really excited.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Jason, how about you?
Similarly for me, I was sure excited. I don't know if you guys knew this about me, but I was a little bit older. I was almost 22 when I got my mission call, went out on my mission. So prior to that, it was kind of a long road to get me on a mission. And two of the people that had a pretty big impact on me going were my grandparents, who on my dad's side, who actually I wasn't terribly close with, like as far as I didn't see them that often kind of throughout my life because they lived a ways away. But they'd call and me every once in a while and just say, "Hey, Jason, we're in the temple today," because they served and worked in the temple. And they're like, "We just have the strongest impression that you got to get your papers in, And I was like, "Yeah, I've heard that from a lot of people,
Right.
But finally, when I did, and it opened up and saw that it was Las Vegas, I all of a sudden remembered, all the conversation I had with my grandparents. Now, my grandparents lived in Logandale, Nevada, which was
that was my first area.
Oh, cool.
So there you go. And that's where they lived, and the Barnums helped kind of settle that area in the early days of the church. And so,
okay.
So to learn that I was going there, and then just to think of that, the old phone calls and the impressions that they had was pretty cool. And my grandparents served in the temple. I would see them, when we would go, once a month to the Las Vegas temple. Kind of funny to run into your grandparents on your mission, but anyway, yeah. So
that's pretty cool. So you actually saw your grandparents?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. I remember thinking I was going to get in trouble or something, and I told President McKee, "My grandparents are here. We're at the temple." And he's like, "Oh, that's great, Elder."
Yeah.
Anyway, so.
My dad was general manager for Pro Rodeo in Canada, and the National Finals Rodeo was always in Las Vegas. And so my Christmas package would get dropped off by him personally at the mission office, but he would not come and see me. And I'm like, "Dad, it's okay. We can break that rule." And he's like, "No, son, we can't. I asked your mission president." I was like, "You're not supposed to ask him. You're supposed to just come and see me."
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Elder, I say Elder, it's funny. Of course, I still when I want to refer to y'all, I think of Elder, right? It's just 25 years later. But so Jared and I, we were serving in up in the Elko area at the time. What were you? What was it? Was it? Remind me of the area you were in.
I was in Carlin.
Carlin, okay.
Yeah, in another town called Eureka.
Eureka, okay, very good. Yep. And I was serving in Elko at the time, and Jason, you were the office an office assistant. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. You got a good memory.
So we had, and then we had Elder Carrillo and Elder Blamires, Andrew Blamires, who's not on this interview with us, was not able to make it. But where was he serving? Do you, Jared? Do you remember?
It'd have to be somewhere in Elko.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what area
I don't
he
know.
was in there.
I don't know where, but I know he was being trained by Elder Stark. who was
Okay.
there. And the reason I remember that is because Elder Stark trained me. So,
Gotcha. Okay.
Anyway.
All right. Very good. And so the Elko being drive time with a van about an 8-hour trip. Is that about right?
Yeah.
About an 8-hour trip north of Las Vegas. And so Elder Barnum, Jason, he and Elder Carrillo, who was an office missionary as well, but he and his wife, they were. How old were they at the time? Do y'all remember? Do you remember about how old they were?
They were in their 70s.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he took care of the fleet and everything, and so he would drive the transfer van up to Elko, Nevada, and back, and whoever the office assistant was at the time would accompany. And Jason was doing that. Any more details you want to share about that process or kind of responsibility?
Yeah. So one of the reasons I was also asked to go along was, so prior to that, President McKee and I, if he was going to be driving somewhere far away, he would have me come along and just drive and chauffeur him. And he'd usually be going through reading like the weekly mission letters from the elders,
Right.
He'd have a stack of them and he'd be going through, and I just chauffeured him, and which was a cool experience in and of itself. But at one point he was like, "Hey, you're a pretty good driver." I was like, "Oh, I grew up on a farm, been doing it a long time, and he's like, "Oh yeah." And, I mentioned that. I was like, "Yeah, I've driven semis and things like that on the farm, and from a young age." And anyway, so he was like, "Hey," at one point he was like, "Elder Barnum, the Carrillos are going to be going home soon. I don't know who we're going to get in to replace them, because we had the Condis in the mission office as well,
Right.
who are also older, couple missionaries, and he didn't feel comfortable driving the transfer van with a big trailer long distance. And he's like, I don't know if the next ones will or won't. He's like, so I'd like you to learn the route, and we'll probably have you drive the transfer van after the Carrillos leave, because they were getting ready to go home soon. So that's why I was going to learn the route.
Very good. I did not know that. Did not know that.
Yeah.
And how long did you serve as an office assistant there?
Seems like it was 8 months.
Okay.
8 or 9. So it was a long time. Yeah.
I was actually in Elko for 8 months.
Okay.
As well. That was my longest area there. How about you, Jared? How long were you up in that area?
I was up in Carlin and Eureka for, I think it was either 5 months or it was 6 months. And then, they were taking me back down to, I was transferring to Bullhead, Nevada, or Bullhead. Is it Bullhead in Nevada or Arizona?
It's Arizona, Bullhead City.
Yeah. Bullhead City is where I was on my way to. And then we had that accident. And so I never did go to that transfer. I ended up in a threesome with Elder Cummings in Vegas. And he affected my life so much that I think that there was purpose in that for sure. And then I actually got transferred back to Elko later on. I think 4 months later or 5 months later, I got transferred back to Elko for another 6 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's where I pretty much finished my mission there.
Oh, wow.
Gotcha. Very cool. So President Whitaker, if y'all would kind of share with me what you remember and what may be most impactful about President Whitaker.
I'll go first. You want me to?
All right.
Okay.
The first thing comes to mind is strict. He was like a no nonsense kind of guy. You don't be late to an appointment with President Whitaker. You don't, and
he was the first counselor to President McKee.
Yep. And so when if you were teaching somebody that needed what we called a Whitaker interview, which I served in some areas and taught a lot of people that needed Whitaker interviews. And
Right.
and I learned real quick, you do not show up late, and you don't reschedule. You do not reschedule. So what's interesting about that, so there's two sides of Whitaker. I don't think most missionaries saw. So when I got to serve in the mission office, he would come in regularly and kind of let his hair down, so to speak, and would just be a different person, just laughing, joking, and finally I got the courage to ask him one day. I'm like, President Whitaker, when we see you, in mission conferences or whatever, you're strict and you're not very approachable.
All business, right?
All business, yeah. And now, but here you are, you're joking with us, you're telling stories, we're laughing. I was like, explain to me the difference. And so he's like, he goes in and into this story about how, he was with, I think McEachran, who was the mission president before McKee. And he was also a counselor to McEachran. And he's like, when there was this transition, he's like, I felt like the missionaries kind of bonded with me. Some of the ones that had been with McEachran, and they didn't really bond towards President McKee quite as much. And so I felt like I needed to just kind of maybe distance myself a little bit, so that people would really look towards President McKee, and not to me. And so I've kind of maintained this all business kind of thing for the most part with most missionaries. So anyway, that's one thing.
Very good.
But he could let his hair down, and funny guy, so anyway.
Jared, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I remember the first day at the temple with him and President McKee.
That's right.
And I remember him just standing there in his pockets looking all military, and he would, when he was speaking, I was like, okay, we got good cop and we got bad cop. That's how they're going to play this. President McKee is going to love me, and President Whitaker is going to keep me on the path.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
And that's just how I felt about that. And I honestly, from that, I was like, I never want to be on the bad end of President Whitaker. But you knew that he loved you. Like you knew that he had a great love for the missionaries. You knew it was very important for him, for us to do our best. And you could tell that was his expectation. And I think that he got us to practice in district meetings and practice in zone conferences at our highest level, our highest ability, because that was the expectation that he set. And I don't think he ever belittled or mocked or made anybody feel less who didn't do as great as anybody else. He just required each person to give their best. And that's why I think the missionaries respected him. Yeah.
Absolutely.
There was love behind it. You could tell.
Absolutely. I never will forget kind of the same situation. You go to in Las Vegas at the time, the assistants would pick us up from the airport and they take us straight to the Strip, right? Here it is. Okay. Don't come back. And then they take us straight to the temple. And there we met, we'd sit basically at the feet of President McKee, as he would teach us for the first time. And I remember President Whitaker in the background, chiseled jaw, right? All black suit, silver hair, and his black Ray-Bans. I'm talking about black as black Ray-Bans. I mean, you could not see in his eyes. I'm like, who is this guy? Is this his bodyguard or somebody or what? But
yes,
that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I remember the same thing. Yep.
But I agree with both of you as you were around President Whitaker more and more, and you realized that yes, he was all business, but he was a spiritual powerhouse, and much like you, Jared, I remember those almost training sessions. Back then we were required to memorize the lessons, and we would go down. I mean, we would all stand up and basically one at a time memorize and recite the paragraphs right in a row. Mm-hmm. And like you say, he held us to a high standard, and I think it was great. It was what we needed at the time. But just a spiritual giant. And for those that know President Whitaker out there, those that didn't have the opportunity to serve with him as he served up under President McKee, and of course, let's don't forget about our mission President McKee. And the reason I mentioned President Whitaker, but it's because I'm about to share something that comes directly from President Whitaker. But absolutely love serving up under President McKee, and the humility that President Whitaker exemplified, I think was very touching as well, because he did absolutely everything and anything on the moment that President McKee directed and everything. And really love that about him. Yep. But I will, so what we'll do here is I'm going to share some writings from President Whitaker that gets us into the instance that we found ourselves in. But President Whitaker, let me see here. Give me just a second. And President Whitaker was in law enforcement for his entire career, LAPD and everything. But he's got a title here. It says "Angels Protect God's Servants," and I'm going to read these. So this is quoted directly from President Whitaker. He says, "As I reflect on my many experiences while serving as a full-time counselor in the Nevada, Las Vegas mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, one particular event will always stand out, for it testified that angels attend the Lord's missionaries. While I served as a mission counselor, my role did not find me mingling with the missionaries, instructing them, or speaking at many meetings as I attended. I learned early in my service that to talk to the missionaries about my background in law enforcement or in the television motion picture industry proved to be a great distraction. Therefore, when I attended our meetings, I sat alone in the back row and allowed myself to be taught, no different from a regular elder or sister. On this day, all the missionaries serving in Southern Nevada gathered in a centrally located chapel to meet with President Bob McKee for a transfer conference. The meeting started no different from the other transfer conferences President McKee had conducted. We prayed, recited My Commission by Bruce R. McConkie and Doctrine and Covenants, Section 4. We sang, and then President McKee stood at the pulpit and began. As he taught, the spirit in the room intensified, and as it did, a brilliant band of light appeared and surrounded the president. As I watched the band of light intensify, I closed my eyes and petitioned the Lord to allow me to see if visitors from the other side of the veil were also in attendance. When I opened my eyes, a flood of spirit encompassed me, and through the tears, I looked up at the pulpit, and in the adjoining choir seats, there appeared seated 6 men dressed in white. Sitting quietly, I watched as they focused first on President McKee and then on the missionaries in attendance. As I fought to control my emotions, there suddenly came to my mind the realization that these brethren were not in attendance to hear a mission president speak, but they each had another assignment that would play out later. And then he goes on and he talks about the experience of the wreck that we'll talk about here. And so I figured what I would do is so I'm going to share what I wrote down in my journal. And I don't know, did y'all take the opportunity to record anything in y'all's journals?
I did.
Okay.
I can't find my journals, so.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I'll read here. So this is November 11th, 1998. It says, we woke up at 5 a.m. This morning and prepared to leave at 6. We met the transfer van at the Ameritel Hotel where Elder Carrillo stays. We started on the trip for Vegas. Elder Carrillo driving, Elder Barnum in the passenger side front seat, Elder Murray in the first row of the back seat. I was in the second row, and then Elder Blamires was in the last row. I laid down in the seat to get a little bit of rest, and I did not buckle up. Elder Murray laid down as well, but he had the seatbelt on. Is that right? Yeah, did you have your seatbelt on? Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
Okay, Elder Blamires laid down as well without his seatbelt on. While I'm laying down and I feel the van to start swerving back and forth. I sit up to see what is happening, and I see a semi truck heading straight for us. We were in his lane, and I know we are going to hit. So I get back down and brace myself for the impact. The semi hits us right behind the passenger door and totally rips everything off the side and the back of the van. And then the semi rams smack into the trailer we were pulling. The whole front of the semi was ripped off from the axle and everything. The trailer had ripped from the van, and the van flipped 3 or 4 times, and I'm just being thrown all over and all over the place, and everything is out of control. We slid on the roof a little ways and then flipped one more time, and then I was ejected through the side of the van that was no longer there. Everything finally comes to a stop, and I'm just sitting there on a sagebrush where I landed. My right leg is hurting along with the rest of my body. I sit there for about 5 minutes and finally get up. Elder Barnum and Elder Murray later said that I was just white as a ghost and just looked like I was in shock. Everyone was up and walking besides, except for Elder Blamires. My seat had been knocked out of its place and slammed him against the side of the van on the inside. His legs were broken, both femurs. It looked pretty bad, so we left him right where he was and covered him up to keep him warm. And we all just looked at the van and wondered how we were still alive, and above all, that we were up and walking. And I've got some other stuff there as well, but what were y'all's? What do you remember during that impact and everything? What was going through your mind?
You know, that is almost exactly how I remembered it also, because I was sleeping in that back seat, and I actually had taken my seatbelt off. But when I was a kid, my mom would make us wear our seatbelt in the back, just loosen it enough that you can twist and lay on your side. And that's what I had got up, put my seatbelt back on, loosened it just enough so I could twist and lay on my side. And I'm so grateful for that thought popping into my head. But anyways, I remember Elder Carrillo screaming, "Everybody hang on." And that's what actually kind of woke me up or alerted me. But by that, as soon as he had said that, it was impact, and we were on the ride. The next thing that I remember is just looking out to my right and looking down at you sitting in a bush, and you were just sitting there with your hands on your legs, just like staring out at the road. And then you looked up at me and you were just breathing really heavily. And I was like, "Are you okay?" And you're like, "Yeah, my legs hurt. I'm okay. Yeah." And then I remember hearing Elder Blamires just wailing in the back. And I did not go back to see him. I didn't want to see that because I don't know who was tending to him, but I said, "Is he all right?" And somebody said, "Yeah, he's being tended to." And then I got out and just started walking around and looking at everything and just being amazed at what I was seeing. It was just, it looked like a plane had crashed and just slid a kilometer along the highway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, for me, that's, yeah, your account there, where it was obviously fresh in your mind at the time when you when you wrote it. I'm glad that my memory is still in line with what you wrote there. So yeah, I was in the front passenger seat, and prior to maybe a minute or so prior to the accident, I was actually my seat was reclined all the way back, and I was sleeping.
Right. Yeah.
And I woke up, and like when I wake up, like sleeping in a car, I never sleep well in a car, but I'm usually kind of groggy and kind of, but this time it was like awake and sit up, and I was just wide awake and sitting up. And Elder Carrillo, I remember we're driving, and he wasn't, he's going the speed limit. We're going over, we're going terribly fast, and a semi's coming our direction. I think he just kind of felt like, hey, I'm going to slow down a little bit. It's, it's icy out here. There's a lot of snow. And he had the cruise control on, and he tapped the brake just enough for the cruise control to come off. And it was just that much. That's what just caught that little change in speed is what caused us to start to fishtail a little bit.
Okay.
And Elder Carrillo was trying to correct, doing all the right things, trying to correct. And, but that was a big trailer. It was a double axle trailer we were pulling. And it was,
we were really long.
Yeah. And it got to, I don't know if you've ever been in one of those situations where you keep correcting and it's not getting any better, and to the point where we were completely perpendicular across the freeway. And so here I am in the passenger side looking right at that semi. And when that semi hit us, I mean, it was like a bomb went off, like an explosion, just so loud.
It was. Yeah.
And and then it hit us, tore through us. We spun off the road, like you said, rolled. And I remember the airbags on both sides came out, front airbags. And I just remember when we landed on our wheels, and I look around and I'm still alive, still conscious. And the first thing I remember seeing is I look over my shoulder and I see you, Jackson, sitting on that same bush, that same bush, just sitting there. And,
unbelievable.
Anyway.
Yeah, that was the weirdest thing, man. After it all had happened, and I'm sitting there on this bush, and I remember looking up and seeing y'all, and it just like just shocked, like what in the world? Just I mean, really amazed that we're actually still alive looking at that. And so a couple of extra interesting things. The driver of the semi was LDS as well. And correct me if y'all remember differently, but he had just put his son in the MTC like the prior week or the prior Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
Transfer. Yeah.
And also he and President Whitaker refers to this in his account, but he had trouble getting the door open. And then I understood it as his grandfather or father, I can't remember, that had also recently passed away, helping him open up that door and getting out, which was mind blowing there as well.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him running up and the relief, like he just collapsed in relief that nobody was dead. He said, "I thought I'd killed you all."
Yeah.
Wow. And I just can't believe the emotions that he went through.
Yeah. I remember, climbing out my window, and I, kind of went around the van and made sure we were all alive. And then you're right. He came running up, and I still remember he had a lot of blood covering his face.
Yeah.
He wasn't injured very bad. He just kind of, had a cut on top of his head, come to find out. But obviously head wounds are, you have a lot of blood, and I mean, his face was he was covered in blood. And you're right. It was like this feeling of relief, but then also I could only assume he's like, I just hit a van load of missionaries.
Right. Yeah.
It was probably the other emotion, but that, we were all alive. And he just collapsed to his knees. And I think at that point went into shock and was almost, I don't recall that we could, we were up kind of walking around and we were conscious, and, and he was not after that. He was just,
I remember that.
He was just,
it's interesting to see. I don't remember. I remember him. I think I remember seeing him, but I don't remember anything about him after that, about his state of mind and everything. And I'm pretty sure that Jared, you are the one that suggested that we give Elder Blamires a blessing. I don't know if you remember that or not. And we ended up giving.
I do remember that. Yeah. We kind of cramped into the back of the van there, and I did give him a blessing. Yeah.
Gave him a blessing, and again just kind of waited for him to get there, or for the ambulances and everything to get there. Yeah. But I've got go ahead, Jason.
I was just going to say about the blessing. I do remember there wasn't a lot of room for us to kind of get back there. It seemed like there was one able to be right by him. Somebody was able to kind of like reach over the seat and I was actually on the outside.
On the
and
outside,
reached through the broken window.
Right.
I was able to reach through and put my hands on as we gave him blessing.
So let's. I've got the photos here. Give me a second to pull these up. All right, y'all see that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's the that's looking down there, and if you, or if I can zoom on this or not. But
Wow.
there's the front of the that's the axle and everything of the semi.
Right. Yep.
Right there. There's
Yeah,
part of the hood of the semi as well.
Yeah. And the tanker hauling.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was diesel or gasoline, but it was.
Well, you see all that where there's no snow all the way up the hill there. That's diesel just sprayed all the way up the hill.
Oh yeah.
And his tanks on the truck, on the reefer, they exploded. There was diesel. There's still diesel on the pictures that I have from that I salvaged. Like to this day, if I go, they're in a plastic bag, but if I go open that up, it's still diesel in there.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Here's
That's
another
good.
shot of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the trailer.
There's a good shot of the front of the semi right there.
Yeah, and there's his hood upside down.
Do what now?
He's just saying the hood is upside down.
Oh yeah, yeah. The the impact there to rip the entire front of that semi off.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's amazing.
Yeah, that axle too. For that axle.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's right.
He basically drove over the top of us, and so yeah, it's.
Yeah, and that really is the miracle of it all, is that we didn't take the impact that the trailer took.
Yeah.
Now we'll see here in just a second. There's Elder Barnum. There's Jason right there. Standing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And here's the van. You see the van, how far away the van is back in the background there.
Mm-hmm.
There. This is Elder Carrillo.
Yeah.
Here.
And there's the bush.
There's my bush right there. Exactly.
Yeah.
He would dig that thing up and plant it in your yard.
That's right. Yeah.
Still there.
But yeah, I mean, it hit right behind, and Jason was sitting right here. And if he had remained laying back, could have been a different story there as well.
Yeah.
You can see where the van caught in the dirt and then flipped over onto that bush.
Yeah.
Right.
We're sliding on the roof, and then it
Yep.
caught in the dirt there. And as we were flipping over that bush, you got pitched and we landed on the wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Which again is probably another blessing for Elder Blamires, for Andrew, and kind of how, because thankfully we were right side up for the situation for him to be in. And these are the kind of things that you think about and going through your mind, because we didn't touch him. We left him right where he was for the paramedics and everything to get there. But he was right back up in here.
And as I recall, one of the first people on the scene, civilian, was, I don't know if he was just an off-duty EMT or if he was like a off-duty firefighter, but he had some kind of medical training that as he tended to Elder Blamires before the ambulance arrived, before any kind of first responders arrived.
Gotcha. Wow. But that's just amazing right there to really look at that. And then afterwards, after it was taken to the what was it, a junkyard or something, Jason, where this was taken?
Yep. Yeah. They were both the van and the semi truck were taken, and you see the blood on the door there from my head. Because I had to crawl out the window. My door wouldn't open. You see a little bit of blood
right
stream.
here.
Yep, right there, and then
wow,
then down to the right as well. Yep, right there.
So that's your blood right there.
Yep.
Holy cow!
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh wow. Who's are some of these other pictures? Like that one there in the front of the van? Are those yours, Jackson? You took?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I honestly cannot remember how I got a hold of these. No, these had to be. I thought they were probably Elder Carrillo's because this. See, I think you and Elder Carrillo were the only ones that were here.
Yeah.
Because there you are sitting right there.
Yeah. But where did you get them from?
Oh yeah, I can't remember. I don't know how I got
you've
a hold
had
of
them. I see. You've had them since the mission.
Yes.
Okay. So I took a bunch of pictures. So I took most of these, and then I gave a bunch of them to President McKee because
Okay.
he asked for them because Salt Lake had asked for them.
Okay.
I gave him what I thought were the best ones. I never got them back. So.
Oh really?
Yeah.
So is this the first that you're seeing of them?
Yeah.
That's the first I'm seeing all these. These are great.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a big pile of rubble they collected off the freeway. There's the frame of the trailer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow. I mean, most of these I still have, but just like that one there and a couple others I've never seen. So I'm sure.
Yeah, it was all 35 millimeter, right? Disposable cameras back then and stuff. So
that's right.
Yeah.
If you gave them away, they were gone unless they gave them back to you.
Yeah. I don't think I kept any of the negatives or anything.
Let's see here.
Huh. About those pictures, I'll just say real quick. So after I got home from my mission, the missionaries serving in my hometown lived across the street from my parents, and they brought over. I got to know them, a little bit, going on splits and stuff. And they're like, "Hey, we just had this safety training about car safety and all that." And they brought over this brochure, and it was a picture of our van, of our wrecked van.
No way.
Story in it. Yeah. They're like, yeah, this is the church is circulating it to all the missionaries for vehicle safety training. So anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I remember going to the hospital, being taken to the hospital and being in the same room with Elder Blamires. And of course we had the curtains that were separating us. But I will never forget when they set his legs.
I will never forget that either. And I was on the other side of the hospital.
And you could hear him?
I could hear him.
Wow. Yeah, that was...
I was like, what are they doing to him? And I remember a nurse putting her hand on my shoulder and saying, he doesn't know what's going on. He's not aware of what's going on. He's fine. And she was like reassuring me because the screams are so bad.
Right. Yeah, it was just blood curdling screams. Yeah.
Yeah, because his bones were what you would consider a compound fracture. Although they never tore through the skin, but they were completely broken through. And I still remember when I saw him in the van and his legs, they were protruding against his slacks, his suit pants. And I just
I remember the way I describe it when I relate the experience is his left leg was going up over his right shoulder, and his right leg was like going up under him the opposite direction.
Oh,
it was just a horrific situation for him to be in. And then in order for them to, because they life flighted him to Salt Lake, but before they did that, they tried to set his legs. They had to. Trying to set them there and everything. But my kind of a little lighter mood here. So again, I ended up with a couple of scars on my right side, on my right lat, and then on my right tricep. But my legs and everything were also banged up and bleeding and stuff at the time. So they come in there, and I don't know what y'all's experience was, but they cut my clothes. They cut my clothes completely off of me. I mean, everything stripped down, butt naked. Okay, and I'm like, what? I'm like, listen, what are we doing here? I'm all right, And a lady that's checking us in and everything as they're doing all this, she says, "Hey, do you know who I am?" And I'm thinking, you look, I said, you look very familiar, but I can't place a name or anything yet. She says, you have an appointment with us this coming Friday. And I'm like, okay, yep. That won't be me. That's going to be somebody else that will be going there.
Oh, so somebody you were teaching, huh? Oh,
Yeah.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
But
I retell your story all the time.
oh, really?
Yeah, because it's so funny. And I remember, so I had some major bruising and swelling down and around my intestines where the seatbelt was. And so
Yep.
they had actually prepped me for surgery, and they had put a tube up through my nose and down my throat into my stomach. And they had got me all ready in case something ruptured. And it was horrible. And they had kept me like that for hours and hours. And to date, that had been probably the most invasive medical procedure anybody had ever done on me. I mean, I was 19. And then you told me your story, and I was like, okay, that was way worse. I'm so grateful that they didn't cut my clothes off in front of people I was teaching.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I've never lived that one down.
Keeping on kind of a lighter note, there's one picture I have where I'm standing in front of the semi, and I've got blood coming down my face, and I ended up taking that picture and turning it into Christmas cards that year for
Really. Wow.
My parents were not very happy with me about that, but I had little captions.
I love dark humor, so that's perfect.
I had little captions that said, missionary work in Las Vegas is hard. Merry Christmas, things like that.
That's awesome.
Wow. Jared, if you could share a little bit about the you relating your father's experience and what he had shared with you.
So there was an accident in Canada that had happened around that same time, and it was, I think some students were on a trip from school, and they had a similar accident, head-on collision. And if you put those pictures side by side, they look like the same accident, where the van is all peeled open on the side and ripped off on the back. And all of those kids, unfortunately, everybody in that van passed away. And it was just a miracle that we lived. That we all lived. It was just a miracle. I remember the doctor at the hospital saying to us that she said, if I didn't believe before, I believe now, because this is a miracle that you guys are in here and talking to us. And yeah, the doctor was just blown away. Yeah.
Yeah. Getting back to President Whitaker's report of what took place and his personal experience of seeing those individuals dressed in white. He says, the next day, when President McKee shared with me the details of the accident, I knew why I had seen 6 brethren on the stand the previous day. For 5 had been sent to protect the 5 young elders, while the 6th protected Elder Carrillo. He said, and then he says, the accident photographs, if viewed alone, would lead one to believe that all perished in the accident. The fact that all involved had been spared impacted the missionary department to such a degree that not long after the incident, pictures of the wreckage were distributed to many missions for training purposes, which is what you were talking about, Jason, there and everything. So, and I was not aware of this, of President Whitaker's experience until maybe just a couple of months ago.
Yeah, me not until a couple of minutes ago. I'd
never heard this before.
Yeah.
Same here. Yeah. I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah, truly a miracle. And here we are, 25 years later. All right, everybody, just wanted to cut in real quick before we closed this interview out. and talk a little bit more about Andrew Blamires and his recovery. This is something we actually talked about before we hit the record button. But then when we got into the interview, while we were recording, we failed to really emphasize his recovery, which is something that we wanted to do. So he, again, as we mentioned, broke both legs and had to go home for several months. And they had suggested to him that he be released as a full-time missionary. And then whenever he got ready to go back to the mission, they would reset him apart. But he made the decision not to do that. He wanted to remain a full-time missionary during the process of his recovery. And it took him 6 or 8 months, maybe even a little longer. Can't remember the exact time frame, but he was determined to get back to the mission field, and that's exactly what he did. Remained faithful, remained a exercise in faith and courage, and was able to come back and complete his assignment as a full-time missionary in the Nevada, Las Vegas mission. And he was an inspiration to many elders at the time. So again, just wanted to make sure that we let everybody know kind of what the outcome was for Elder Blamires and his with his injuries and everything. So
there's something else about that accident that is amazing, is the members of the church that went out there and they collected all of our stuff piece by piece, and they cleaned all of our pictures one by one. They tried to wipe them off as best as they could, because like everything truly was just covered in diesel fuel, and the diesel fuel had mixed with the sand, and so it was this dirt paste clay diesel fuel. But they went through and they wiped off all of our pictures. They went through our journals page by page, wiped every single one off, and they put them in plastic bags and boxes and salvaged all that stuff for us. And I can't imagine the hours that the membership put into saving that stuff for us.
Wow. Now, see, I didn't know that either. I wasn't being transferred. So that, so I didn't have all of my luggage,
right.
like you did. So yeah. I did not know that, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I didn't have anything in the trailer either, because I was just there for the learning the route. So all my stuff was in the van. And so Jack,
two boxes just showed up at the mission office in Vegas, and they were like, "Hey, here's all your stuff." They went through it all, they cleaned it all, they sent it down to you.
Yeah. Oh wow. So where were you going, Jackson? Were you just coming down?
I was going down for the month. I would ride down for 8 months. I would ride down with the transfer van for leadership meetings.
Oh, okay.
So all the zone leaders, he would have them there train, they would do the training, and then I would fly back to Elko.
Oh,
yeah. By myself, I would fly to Salt Lake City and do a layover and get on another flight and then fly into Elko.
And when I was zone leader, they flew me through San Francisco. And,
really?
Yeah. And then down there. And I remember you telling me a story about a member approaching you and saying, "Where's your companion?"
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that happened to me too.
Did it?
I don't know why. Well, you were gone by that time, and I was just like, this just happened. The same thing happened to me.
Hey, that was a weird feeling though, to be with a companion 24/7, and then to be without one for several hours on a flight and everything, and going out of the mission and then back in. That was definitely kind of weird there.
Yeah,
for sure. So good stuff, man. Well, for me, serving a mission, and this is what I'm telling my children and sons, that serving a mission established a foundation for me. I believed in the restoration, had a testimony of Christ, had a testimony of Joseph Smith, the prophet, and the Book of Mormon and scriptures and everything before I went out, but serving a mission and teaching those things and having those spiritual experiences is really what laid the foundation for me to go out into the world and prepare to have go into college, getting married, having children and everything. It's been my foundation to be able to go back to, and rely upon. And then just knowing that honestly, my life, along with actually 5 other lives, when you include the semi driver, were spared this day. Inches, you're talking about inches of having a different result, and truly, truly grateful for that. So, how about y'all?
For me, my mission, I mean, I was new in the church when I went on my mission. I'd been baptized when I was 16, but I didn't really start going to church until I was 17, 18, and I caught fire. I had new member fire, and
And that's a real thing. That's a real thing for sure.
Mhm.
And so I was excited for my mission, but I was building my own testimony on my mission at the same time. And I didn't love all of my mission, but I loved most of it. And the parts I didn't love, I'm grateful for the lessons that I learned on it. And it truly was a foundation for me. It gave me the independence that I needed at that time in life to launch into building my own thing, launch into building my own life, to separate from my parents and my family. And it gave me the confidence that I could go home and I could start a life, and I could do it. I could do it on my own. So, and yeah, I carried that with me throughout life, all the lessons that I've learned there.
Very good.
And I think I would just echo what both of you guys said. It's certainly a foundation. For me, going out on mission late or later than typical. Prior to what I tell people, and they ask, how did your mission affect you? A lot of times you say, oh, it changed my life, which it did for me, but it also literally changed me as a person. I look at the person I was before a mission and the person after, and I feel like they're completely 2 different people. And I say that because I went, even though I grew up in the church, have very active parents that did their best. I went through this period of inactivity where I didn't want really much to do with the church. A lot of people be surprised that I really don't share this ever, but I'll share it here that, there was a period of time I actually spent a little time in jail prior to my mission, to the point where I was pretty fortunate I was able to serve a mission. And I look at that person prior to the mission and then who I am after, completely 2 different. I mean, the guy before, if you ask him, are you going to go to college? Are you going to, do any of these things? I would have said, no, heck no, I don't, But man, going on a mission and just changed me to have confidence to be able to, go to college, get a degree, and do well in society, I guess. Just the mission certainly helped me more than I think I helped others. But I still think about the people I was able to teach and share the gospel with. And the love that you have for them is undescribable. It's just an overall amazing experience. And now that, I've got kids that, my oldest daughter, 15, she's talking about going on a mission. And I'm just so proud that she's prepping for that. And see some of the youth that I've worked with, go out on missions and now coming back. And, it's kind of crazy to watch these kids grow up. It reminds me of how old I'm getting.
Right.
But I see those changes that happen. You see these kids when maybe you worked with them when they're, priests, and then they come back as returned missionaries, and you're just like, wow, man, mission did you well, did you good. And so, anyway, serving in the church and just being in the church has just been, ever since my mission, has been the biggest blessing.
Absolutely. It definitely, you come back a different individual. I won't ever forget my brother after I came back and, I gave my, homecoming talk and everything. And I remember him saying like, dude, where's Jackson? Like, who are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I got that a lot, especially people that knew me when I was a little more wild. I
Right.
got that a lot. Yeah.
Man, oh man. Well, y'all got anything else to share about the wreck or anything? Any closing thoughts? Any other closing thoughts?
I got one more thing here for you guys. So I pulled something out of storage here. So this is something I kept with me since the mission. So after that point, that accident, I drove the transfer van for the rest of my mission after that.
Okay.
Until I went home. Every month when we would have, and I felt like a tour guide a lot of times because the missionaries I take up, they had all kinds of questions, and then I would even stop at the place where the accident happened, and there was a lot of debris still along the sides of the road, and so I would pick up different mementos, and kept a lot of them, but I've kind of lost some of them along the way over the last 25 years. But one thing I've kept. Oh, well, you guys can see this. This is the air horn.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Off the semi.
Man.
All crumpled up here. Yeah.
Wow.
Cool. And I've kept
That's
it all this year.
Right there for sure.
Just a reminder of this accident. And it's funny, my kids will see it once in a while and go, Dad, what is that? And I'll share the story with them. And at one time I had the hitch that connected the van to the trailer, and it is a big, heavy receiver hitch, and it was twisted, almost like like clay, just twisted. But it was so big and hefty. I don't remember it might be at my parents' house or something, just carrying it around when I'd go to college and other places. Got too much, and so but anyway, I've always kept the semi horn with me.
Wow, that's cool, man. I feel like I knew you had that, but I'd forgotten about that. And that's now, and I didn't know that you ended up driving the I know I knew it at the time because you went home and you decided to extend a month, right? Is that correct?
No, so I was going to extend. I was actually asked to extend, and then I ended up having to start school early or something like that. So I actually went home in July.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
I did end up going home the regular time. So I didn't.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, I was asked to extend as well, and for me, I told him I was called for 24 months. I've done 24 months, and I was gung ho, hardcore missionary for 24 months, but at 24 months, I was ready to go home. My time was done.
Yeah.
So I turned him down. I turned President Tate down on that extension as well. And I know President Tate was probably a great mission president. But one of the things that I really, really hate that I missed out on was the final interview with President McKee. Because he went home a week before we went home, and did not get to have that opportunity to have that final interview with President McKee. And that's I really, really wish I could have had that. So
can I just say something about that? I remember having my final interview with him because whenever you have zone conferences and things, he can have one-on-one with him, and it's like at the end of the interview, he's like, any last things for me? And I was like, yeah, I know you're leaving, a week before I do. And I was like, when I was in the mission office, I got to see all these missionaries go home, and they'd have that final interview with you.
Right.
And they'd all come out just, I've never seen smiles so big.
Right.
And I always wondered what you said to those missionaries. I was like, can I have my last interview with you? And so I was able to do that. And he just laughed when I said that. He's like, it's probably because I was beat you guys down so hard for 2 years. And then at the last final interview, I tell you how great you are and send you on your way. And so anyway,
Wow.
But I will say in that interview, one of the things he shared was just, he's like, not a day will go by that you won't think of your mission in some way, shape, or form. Not a single day of your life. And so, and it's true. It's been true for me. You know, every single day I think of some aspect of my mission. So,
yeah. Yeah, I know we're not supposed to be envious, but I'm envious of you right now. Being able to have that last interview with President McKee. I'm serious, man. That missing out on that just because for 23 months and 3 weeks. Well, I guess 22 months and 3 weeks because we were in the MTC for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But you're with President McKee, and then but anyway, yeah. I guess I'll survive.
Call him up. I'm sure he'll give you a final interview.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I actually have talked to him a couple of times over the years. It's been a few years since I last actually had about 10 years ago. I ended up calling him up and talking with him for a little bit. So yeah.
Cool.
Well, very good. Anything else? Y'all good?
No, it was good to walk down memory lane with you guys for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. Same here.
Yeah, likewise.
Well, I'll go ahead and close this out, and then I'll stop the recording. But until next time, y'all keep on striving.